You are a creator. You create your career, your business. You create a family. You create your future. On the Results Driven Life by Design broadcast, get ready to hear from people from all walks of life and how they overcame the odds to create a life led by purpose and vision. Here's your host, Kia Arian.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to today's broadcast. I always begin by reminding you that your skills, your experiences, and your talents have been given to you for a reason. No one else has that unique combination, and no one else has your voice. You have a message that the world needs to hear. So, as you listen to today's show, I invite you to a greater vision for your life that resonates beyond what you do, but why you do it. On today's show, I am very pleased to welcome someone who is one of the few people who has made a significant impact on my business and in my life. Her name is Mandi Ellefson. The name of her company is Hands Off CEO. Now, before I bring her on, I want to tell you how I met Mandi. She cold messaged me on LinkedIn with a non-pitchy message telling me what her company does and gave me a link to one of her podcast episodes. And she followed up and invited me to a sales call that was geniusly positioned as an executive briefing. Then she sent me her lead magnet. She did so many things right in this process, from her positioning to her targeting, to the language she used, her funnel, her demeanor, all of it. And we'll try to get into that today. But so I read her lead magnet and then I got on a call with her. And then after a few minutes, I was like, oh my God. This woman has been spying on me and my business for the last 10 years, literally. She not only nailed the problems I was dealing with as an agency owner, her solution felt glorious. And notice I said felt, because I saw that she knew exactly what my reality was and what I was dealing with and how to create a different reality. 3 years later, and my life and my business were transformed for the better. It wasn't easy. There were a lot of tears, but Mandi carries a unique energy that she combines with her skills, her knowledge, her experience, and a strong intuition. And she's able to use those to make an impact on the people that she has been called to help and truly transform their lives. I'm so excited to have her on the show and have this conversation. Mandi, welcome.
Thank you so much, Kia. What a beautiful introduction. And I appreciate you jogging my memory to all of those things from years ago.
Yes. I think it's about 3, maybe going on 4 years now. So what I like to do on my podcast, Mandi, is to dive deep and not just talk shop, right? I'm sure listeners want to know what you do and how to get connected and learn more. And we'll make that opportunity and talk about that. But I like to show how you created what you created. What were some of the biggest challenges, biggest wins, and anything else that ignites something for someone in this audience that says, I can see myself do this. I can see myself be this. I can create something extraordinary too. Because I think all of us have it in us and very few people step into it. So why don't we start with this? Would you briefly start by sharing your journey to where you are now today?
All right. Starting with
wherever you want to start.
Right. So I'll start with my journey to my company, Hands Off CEO. And that journey started when 13 years ago, when I was pregnant with my second daughter, Denali. And I was very pregnant with her. And just towards the end of this, I had a little agency, and I found out very quickly that my preparations for my maternity leave were just not going as planned at all. And basically my business was crumbling around me because I didn't have the structures in place, the people in place that I needed to have the company to be able to run without me, so I could take maternity leave, which would have been really nice to have that income coming in at this time of our life when my husband was in this demanding medical program. And we had a lot of stress on our shoulders, let's just say. Brand new location across the country, not a lot of support. It was just a really hard time. And here I was running into this business crumbling around me, and I didn't know why this was the case, because a different business that I had run as a manager, I was able to systematize this. I was able to get I could run without me for weeks at a time with very little effort, and I couldn't make this work for my own company. And I went to go understand this. So I started to have a lot of conversations with people who had the same kind of challenge, because I knew that if I could solve this problem, then I could solve it for myself. This was after, of course, shutting my business down for a short time, so I could actually have maternity leave. That was a really good decision that I made. It was a very good place for me to invest my time, but it would have been nice to have both. So I went and I just started asking people to interview them and just see what they're facing, what they were dealing with. And I was finding that a lot of business owners have the same problem as me. And I just looked at it from my perspective that, well, maybe I can't really have this because, as a woman and as a mother of two daughters, and I can't have both. But I refused to accept that. So I was looking at how could we solve this issue. So I just started solving the problems that people had, just because it just was a natural extension that I'm a pretty good problem solver. And then before I knew it, people were asking to pay me to help solve their challenges. And I accidentally started a consulting company. My branding and web design company at the time, I had one key person that I passed it off and sold that to her. She's still running it today, actually. And that's been a real blessing for her to be able to have that, because it was all started up for her to be able to keep running it. But ultimately, it's turned into this this whole program that's, you have gone through the Scale to Freedom program, and as part of the Hands-Off CEO business, and we've been doing that for about 12 years now. And that's what got me to here. So I'll let you ask some further questions.
Yeah. So here's what I want to know. Why do you think you couldn't solve it for yourself, but you could solve it for other people?
I was too close to it. I couldn't see the problem clearly. And there were different variables within the situation that I was in versus the other one. And I didn't know what those were until I was able to sort through it and see enough. I was looking for enough data points, basically, to be able to actually see the pattern. And then once I could see the pattern, then it applied to me, and I could see what the problem was.
That's so interesting. You were too close to it. You didn't have. So there was a lack of knowledge of the information. Like you didn't know what data points you didn't have. You went and asked, got the information. Now you knew the data points, and then you were able to. But the idea of being close to it, was that related to lack of information, or was that something else?
That was also a very highly emotional time in my life too. I mean, here I am across the country, no family support, no friends, because I made some friends pretty quickly, but I have a brand new baby. I have a 4-year-old daughter. I have a husband that is not really able to support me very much. I'm there supporting him. So I'm a single mom, essentially, but also I need to support him too, because he needs my support more than ever. And I'm a new mom with a 4-year-old by myself. So this is a very highly emotional time. And also I just experienced having my business collapse that I had spent years building up to that point. And the really sad part about it was like, I had gotten to a point where I was really getting traction. And I was very disappointing to be looking at how much traction, how much inbound work was coming in. And I was like 7 months pregnant, and I'm like, great.
So what I found, so one of the things that I find in the business world, Mandi, is that with all the data that's out there on how to run your business, do this, do that, the energy of the emotions that run through get neglected. And a lot of times, yeah. And a lot of times we hear that when you and I have been in a lot of masterminds, a lot of coaching, right? And what we see is this mindset, great mindset. But the stuff that you manage in your mind, the stuff that goes through you in terms of emotion doesn't always, like, no one is telling you how to connect those dots. No one is telling you what to do with that. So here's my question to you. What was the breakthrough for you that helped you? Because clearly the emotional like didn't stop. Then you had your baby, right? So then it's like the emotions continued, and people go through emotional journeys as they're building their businesses. What was the thing that said, or the things that said, okay, this is how I need to regulate or manage that so that I can build this business? Does that
Right.
make sense?
Well, I think one of the biggest things was, and this is something that, I'm coming from my mother, like know what season you're in. And I needed to respect the season that I was in. This is especially the case with women. We need to really respect the season that we're in and not come from this scarcity place of like, well, statistics show that if I'm not doing this for this many years, I'm going to be making X amount less than a typical man, which there are those statistics out there, right? But we don't live in a linear world. I mean, we can live in a linear path, or we can go and create whatever the hell we want. That's the life that I live. And I needed to respect where I was at. I needed to respect the time and the space that I had for my little girls, and that's exactly what I did. And then I started taking on a few clients here and there. I took a very small amount of private clients on as I was going, and I was learning. And what I was essentially doing was I was building the system that we now have, this framework that now, dozens, hundreds of service-based companies have gone through. But that started out with getting intimate with the problem, not focusing on scale. Everybody likes to talk about scale, 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 right? Even my program is called Scaled Freedom, right? But you have to start with what's going to be effective. How do you be able to make this effective? And that starts with just like what I was talking about, just interviewing people. It starts with actually just having conversations, and it starts with using your brain and breaking down problems. And I think one of the biggest challenges that many of us have, or I mean, I wouldn't say all of us, but many leaders have the problem of they don't really know how to think, and they don't actually set aside time to think. And this is something that I definitely learned. I learned how to think in two different ways, in more of a scientific way, because I was going to be a geologist. So I learned the scientific method and the way of thinking that way. And I learned how to analyze, especially looking at a big picture image of rock formations and what caused what started first, and be able to understand that. That's one way of thinking. And then the other, I studied art and art education. I was going to be an art teacher, actually, an art and science teacher. And I come from a family of artists too. So it's this really different, the way artists think is very different than the majority of the population. And so when you can combine the two ways of thinking, it's really powerful. But it takes being able to break things down and ask a lot of questions deeper, 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 deeper. And when you, and that's actually one of the ways that I solve problems more than anything, is just I ask a lot of questions, and I try to understand how all the connections fit together. And I have an advantage to this, that I'm dyslexic. So I have to look at things in a very, I have to understand how all the connections, the things fit together. So I learn very differently than other people. But once I understand how all the pieces fit together and I organize them in my mind, which I usually do by drawing. And if you look at my walls, you'll see I have drawings all over them. I'm showing how all the different ideas connect together. And once you understand that, and you might have to draw over and over again to really understand the interconnected pieces. But when you understand the interconnected pieces, bam, you got it. And I've learned how to do that faster and faster and faster. And by doing that's what allows me to solve problems more thoroughly at a deep root level and faster than most people. And this is a skill that anyone can learn. And this is a skill that, by the way, we teach our clients, and we force them to learn how to think through our programs.
Mm-hmm. You do. You absolutely do. And it's what I love about your process of problem solving, because that goes back to what I said. When you presented yourself to me, you nailed the problem. And because of this skill that you've cultivated of being able to see the problem deeply right? Before you can solve it, right? You gotta see it before you can solve it. Taking all the data points. And what I find today, and I kind of alluded to it, is that people are very unbalanced with it. They either look at it very scientifically with all the data tracking and like analytics and all that, which fine, you need that. But then you also need, we call it the energetic part, the part that doesn't have all the data points that, you talk about. There's a flow to it. There's a, we have people who take it kind of to extreme and they seem a little woo woo and weird, but when you bring it, it's very grounded, and it just like it connects in a way that brings the breakthroughs for the people. So you're exactly right, and where it culminates to is this program where you are teaching people how to do exactly what you did. Look at the problem, articulate it, and then create the solution. And and that's what transforms people.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And I think the important part is deciding what problems do you want to solve?
Mhm.
And I mean, I can solve a lot of problems. I can solve the problem that the grass is too tall in the yard, and I can go mow the lawn if I wanted to. I haven't done that for about 20 years, but I know how to do it. I could cook a gourmet meal. Um, I could change the oil in a car. There's a lot of problems that I could solve and services that I could offer people, but it really comes down to like what kind of problems do you want to solve?
Mhm.
And you can solve little problems like, well, this company needs a website. That's a problem. So you have a very small part of the population that says, I need a website. I know I need a website, versus you could be solving the problem of, we're really trying to take our company to the next level. We have a med spa here, and we're not sure how to take our company to the next level. And that company you could deliver a website for, you could deliver a marketing strategy for, you could deliver all sorts of really incredible solutions to this company to solve that problem, and you can get paid way more for it. And you don't even have to do all the work yourself. You could bring in all the other people, but it's just coming down to like, what kind of problems do you want to solve?
Exactly. And that's part of the key formula that you took me through, and people in Scale to Freedom. So Mandy, we might have touched on some of this, but I'm just gonna ask it to focus in. So what besides, obviously building hands-off CEO, maybe this isn't the answer, but besides that, what has been your proudest accomplishment?
Transforming my relationship with my husband and my
Ah,
children.
tell me about that.
Well, we've been married 20 years, and there has been a number of different stages you go through. Um, and there are points where it could be a jumping off point, and where you split and go ways, do different ways, or it can be a moment where you decide to transform together, and that you really get clear on what your goals and your values are together, and also learn to have a deeper level of acceptance for the other person and for yourself. And then also recognizing, getting into this deeper root issues, is understanding what really is the root of it. And a lot of times it's the healing that's undone. And as you get to different levels in your life, those things come up, and it's time to release them. And by the way, this is connected to your business too, because like, I mean, we work with CEOs who have a difficult time letting go. And a lot of times they can't let go because there's a control there, and the control comes from a feeling like it's their way of being able to feel safe. You have to be able to address the root cause of that. And if you don't, then it doesn't matter how many systems, how many people you pile onto it. That's a mindset that has to be shifted if you really want the result. So coming back to this, that my biggest, the proudest moment is that, and it's this beautiful marriage and partnership that I've created with my husband, and transforming the relationship with each one of my daughters. I've got a 17-year-old and a 13-year-old, and I've learned about what are the pieces that I need to shift about myself to be able to create what I want with them. And with my daughters, I learned it's really deep listening and be able to help them feel loved and accepted. And that's brought me so much joy to be able to connect with my daughters in such a way. And for my sweet little 13-year-old daughter who will like come and sit on my lap and cuddle with me. And like most 13-year-olds don't do that, right? And that's also kind of a unique, something specific to her. She's so sweet, right? But I have these amazing connections with my daughters, and it's not just about the time, it's about the quality and how they feel with you.
Thanks for sharing so candidly about that. And I love that you said that because that goes back to you really understanding what the problem is. Because one of the, and during the time that we were working together, I was part of, in your group. And because what you're delivering to these CEOs, these is like huge growth, right?
Right.
And like you said, it's not that they don't have the systems or the people. Those are kind of the surface problems. But the thing that stops their growth the most, and I love that you said this, for men, it's the letting go and losing their identity of who they were in their business, the do everything person. For women, it's fear of losing their relationships, their marriage, their and or neglecting the relationship, putting the time that's needed. And because success brings with itself a lot of changes that do impact relationships, and we see it all the time, where hugely successful people end up having their personal life, their marriages break down. And I love that this was so near and dear to your heart, and that you provided so much support for that for the people in your group. And because you're leading them, you did it yourself, and that just really speaks to why you're doing it all. At the end of the day, it's not the big $10 million business that's going to satisfy you. It's the relationships that you had.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's also, very driven people, there's a certain satisfaction that comes with creating and with really becoming the best version of yourself. And it's learning how to be able to navigate the trap that you're going after this to be able to fulfill like an emptiness inside of yourself, which is like, I'm not enough. I need to fill that so I can feel enough. And it's an easy trap to get into versus like, I want to be the most expansive version of myself. I want to give my very best gifts. And what happens is that in relationships, you have people growing at different paces. And that growth can be very threatening if you don't find ways that you can really reconnect and also help both parties to feel very accepted. And one of the other things I want to say about this too is that the premise that my marriage is built upon is like an eternal commitment. We have an eternal marriage that we committed to. So within that, the context that I see around that is that we don't grow linearly, and change can happen at the speed of thought, and it does. And I've seen it. I've seen miracles happen. Like just we're talking in moments, seconds, that new paradigms shift. And you see things in a whole new way. And now all of a sudden you cannot be the same person that you were before. So when I say this, is it's important to look at relationships because everybody's growing at different paces, and to not judge where your partner is because because growth looks different to each person. And also if it might feel like one's behind the other for whatever reason, which happens, it happens, right? As at different times. I mean, there's mental health issues. There's just slumps. There's career changes. There's all sorts of things that happen and that's the whole point of a marriage, that you're like, or other relationships, you're there for each other as you're going and you're transforming together. So it's this stair stepping and recognizing that you're there to hold space for the other person as they're continuing to expand in their highest self, but doing so without judgment and with love, which is easier said than done.
Yes. And, and I love how you created words around it. You created frameworks. That's what I mean. When this stuff that you can't like hold, it's like a mattress, right? Like a mattress, you try to lift it and there's nothing to hold on to. But and so it's just like flopping around so heavy. But here you come along and you put handles to it and you like bring like stuff around it. And you're like, "Ah, I got it. Now I can hang on to
Mhm.
this now." And I feel like you really just have such a talent for that, in which, whether
Well,
it's the, you know, emotions or whether it's the business. So
I've thought a lot about it. I've thought a lot about it. I've written a lot about it, and I think that's another tool, is like being writing and drawing out, mapping things, like understanding. When you really deeply understand what's going on, that's when you can start putting words to it and that language, and that's where when you can understand it that way, it's easier to help other people understand it as well.
Yes, that's exactly right. And that's, we one of our core programs is print newsletters. And one of the biggest problems that are, challenges that our clients or prospects is like, I don't have time to write. I don't have time to write, which is so unfortunate, and we've always tried to push them to write because of what you said. When you write, you're able to like see things deeper in a way that really improves your life and expands your life. But people just aren't willing, to cultivate that. It requires thinking, and then they get like mind junk. Like, well, I'm not a good writer. It's like it doesn't matter. It's the thought process that goes into what you're building. So, but
I
I,
used to
I
be a terrible writer. I used to be a terrible writer. Like it's I think I'm a pretty good writer now. And I got
mhm.
and I wrote a book now. But that, like, it's just taken years of practice. And I think I will say that it is the most important skills that I have learned as a business owner is writing. And I was just thinking on this yesterday. I took a guest posting course from John Morrow about, it was at the beginning of this, it was about 12 years ago. And I used that every single day. And it wasn't just about guest posting. It was about, how do you be able to talk about problems? How do you be able to organize information? And it made me a better copywriter. I know, Kia, you're very much into copywriting. That's something you've really developed a mastery around as well.
Yeah, my writing, and like when I look at the first things that I wrote, like you, I'm like, oh my gosh, I was not a good writer, but I stayed with it, and now it truly is something that I enjoy. And it's like you said, it helps me dissect ideas. It's such a gift. It's it's not a gift that I have. It's something that gives me a gift to be able to understand
Right.
and to put words to. It truly is. And I've sort of given up that battle of encouraging people to write for their
Well,
newsletter, but
do you want me to tell you what I think the real issue is? It's
go
like,
ahead.
whenever someone says I don't have the time to do it, really what they mean is that I'm not committed to do this. I don't think there's enough value in spending my time on it. Because if they knew that they spent this time writing this and then it would generate like another two clients for them, they probably would do it, right?
Right.
Um, so and I think that one of the issues with it, and this is certainly the case for me, is that writing can be very vulnerable, and especially if you're writing on like a deeper level. And I remember when I was first learning this, and I was writing an email to send to my teeny tiny list of like, maybe there was 100 people on it at the time, but it was 100 people that I knew. So like I knew each person on that list, and I remember having this email that I had written out, and like it was such an emotional thing for me. I was crying literally as I was sending. I pushed send. Like that was how I was considering actually paying someone to just push the send button. It's so ridiculous. I mean, this was over a decade ago, right? But like what it really was is it was like a fear of being seen, a fear of not being liked. And also just kind of dipping into like being kind of that person who stands out and has different ideas, and people not liking me for it all through my life. And I learned how to be, I've had to learn how to sit with that and just be okay that not everybody's going to like me. In fact, a lot of people will not like me. And that's okay. And that means that there's going to be some other people that really like me, and that's okay too.
Yep. Yep. I totally know when I first did my email marketing, same same exact roller coaster. It's like send. Oh my goodness. That's
Glad I'm not
awesome.
the only one. I thought that was the only psycho that had dealt with that.
Oh no. And then obsessively checking unsubscribes. Like, why did they unsubscribe? And today it's like, whatever, good. You weren't, it really,
I have
everybody goes through that. So, all right. I love all that what you said about writing. I thought it was just gold. That was gold. So let me ask you this. What was the biggest challenge you had to overcome? And how did you overcome
Like which area? Like I kind of want more
it?
specific, but I will say the biggest challenge was like transforming our relationship because like when things weren't good in my relationship, things have not been good in my business as far as like it's been a struggle to have a desire to move things forward. And so that I think that was one of those things, and just making, and like that story around like that you brought it up, like women are afraid that if they really go for it, that they'll lose their relationships. And here's the thing is, you're right, sometimes they do. That's really the case. And what I had to come to the realization around, and part of my own transformation in this, is I had to really take a stand for, like, this is who I am. And it's not the business or any of that. That's not who I am. It's who I am is who I'm choosing to become, and the growth that I want to have as a person, and how much I love to mentor and grow other people to become their very best version of themselves. And I know that you're great at that too, Kia. And I had to really step into that and say, this is who I am. And if I can't be who I am, and if I have to limit myself in the growth that I want to have as a person, not as a business, but as a person specifically, then it's not meant to be. But I don't think it has to be so black and white. I think that there's patience, there's ways to expand. And these are all stories, by the way. These are all stories that I've told. I'm not necessarily saying my husband came out and say, we can't be together. Like, it wasn't that way, but there are things that we tell ourselves, and we find evidences to build that up and everything. And that was one thing that I really had to transform and to really go for that. And I've had to transform that at many stages, right? And sometimes it's become self-fulfilling prophecies. And, I remember working with our relationship coach at one point. Man, we're talking a lot about relationships. I remember reaching out to him, and his name is Bruce Music. His company is Love At First Fight. He thinks in a very similar way to me, but he has an enormous amount of expertise around relationships, and is phenomenal. He has like a program that you can purchase for like $300, and it's amazing, transformative. It's just the work that he does in the world is incredible. Anyway, going back to this, and I was having a conversation with him, and I said, okay, you know what, like, he screwed this up, and you know what, but I'm the benevolent one. I'm willing to do the work. I'm in my righteousness, and I'm going to come and share with you what's going on, then tell me how I can fix this because he broke it, right? That was kind of like how I was coming about it. And I proceeded to tell him about the situation. He's like, you picked that fight. I'm like, no, I did. He's like, yes, you did. You did. And I realized that at certain levels that I would go, and I would, without even being aware, go and create the very scenario that I was most afraid of. So that's why it's so important to have that self-awareness to really understand the root cause issues, because otherwise you're solving the wrong problem and you're blaming everyone else.
Oh my gosh, that's so good. You're absolutely right about that. And you know what? It is all about relationships. At the end of the day, everything is about relationships. And we may think that, we're doing it to get more money or to get the house or to get, the experiences. But if you don't have the relationships, who are you going to enjoy it with? And it really does come down to that. And that's, and I love that because, I the saying that I heard that I love, it says, people can out hustle you, they can outspend you, they can outmarket you, but they can't take away your relationships, because at the end of the day, that's what's gonna matter. So it really is about that. So what do your clients enjoy most about working with you?
Results.
Results.
Well, I will say that that's why they join, because they want results. They see all the case studies, and they see there's something different about this here. And what's different is that everything you're discussing, we address the mindset and also the system together, and in a very grounded way that is accessible to many people. And they really love the retreats. That's one of the things that we've heard that the most, the retreats. Like your face lit up there as I said
Yes.
that.
I want to talk about that, but so okay, so your retreats. They were so like profound for me in so many ways. And I'm glad you mentioned that because I want to make sure that like after Mandy's retreat, there and I mean they're like mastermind meetings, right? And you call them retreat too. But I like refuse to go sit in a conference room under fluorescent lights for 8 hours being talked at. I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore because of you. And so, and I try to tell the people that I know that like host these things, I don't take them on bike rides, go somewhere active, go outdoor. You're going to get so much more powerful results than just sitting there and talking to them for 8 hours straight. But no one listens. But let me ask you this. So the last retreat, you actually opened it up. Is that something you're going to like non-tribe members? Is that
Yes, we
right?
are going to be opening up. They have to be qualified. It's for $1
Okay.
million up companies.
Okay.
And we had a few guests come, and it was really a great experience for the guests, and it added value to the tribe. But they're highly vetted. They have to come and have things to add.
Okay.
But like the transformations that came out of our guests, it was amazing. I loved
Yeah.
that.
I believe it. I believe it. I'm sorry I had missed it. I had something else. But okay, so the next one is when? Yeah,
Yeah,
it's in
it's
May.
May,
Okay.
May 6th to the 8th.
Okay. Perfect. And so I can't recommend it enough. And I'm definitely am planning on joining you. So I've missed is it well, I want to but anyway, just love everything about it. Love the retreats, the results, and I would add that the path to the results is so unique for each person. And a lot of times, some of these other sort of, programs or whatever that people join, they focus on the process and the path, and not that that's bad, but you get on it and you think, oh, I have to follow this, and when you don't, you're like, well, I must have done something wrong. But everybody's journey is so unique. Like mine was completely different than what I thought it was going to be, but here I have, I'm kind of in the middle of these amazing, results that I love, and it wasn't what I thought it was, but here I am. So,
Well,
so yes, the results and being open to the journey there.
Yeah.
Okay, the last question I wanted to ask you is what are the top 2 or 3 books that have really made an impact or added value to your life and your journey? And what would you
Top 2 or
recommend?
3 books.
Hmm.
U Squared, I think, is a really fantastic book about quantum leaps. And I was kind of talking about linear way versus exponential thinking. So that is a really great book. How to Win Friends and Influence People is such a fantastic book.
So you did share one before we started the interview was real life or
Real
real love?
Love.
Real
Yeah,
love.
Real Love is a good one. I
You
don't
did
know if
share
I
that.
would say it's like the top. It's really a good one.
Okay.
Um,
It's the recent one that you read.
it's a recent one that it's very powerful. There's I'll have to think through because I think the Big Leap is a good one along those same
Oh,
lines too.
I agree.
And that's definitely a very impactful book.
Mhm.
But I really enjoyed. There's also one around drawing pictures that I really enjoyed. Hence, this was a really fun one. Um, Called Pencil Me In, and it's like drawing. It's like using. This is a very unique one that I think most people would not have thought of, but it's everything I was talking about with problem solving. It shows how to model out how to draw these things out. So everything. This might be a good one to just mention within the context of how to solve problems by drawing, and it teaches you how to do this. And I kind of wish I would have written this book, but it's really a cool book, right?
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. And that, that connects that artistic sort of part of the mind with the analytical. So I think that's really good.
100%.
Yeah, that
And
was,
that's a very important skill set that very few people have.
yes, yes. I agree with you. I agree with you. And if that's one thing that they come away with from this conversation is to really connect those parts. But there was so much gold in this conversation. Thank you, Mandy, for making the time and for being so candid and open with it. How can people connect with you? What is anything else you want to share with the audience?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, you know, talked a lot about mindset and of all sorts of flowy subjects, which is fun. But we have a really clear process for, how to be able to add millions of dollars of growth to your company, how to get paid at least twice, 3 times as much, 10 times as much for the same work that you're already doing. You can download this book, handsoffceo.com. Well, you can buy it on Amazon, or you can go to handsoffceo.com/book. And you can buy yourself a copy for $5. There's an audio version, a digital copy, and some goodies in there about how to be able to drive more profit to your company as you as the company's less dependent on you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So get the book. I have it. I read it 100%. Thank you for sharing that. Mandi, thank you again for coming on the show. And thank you for the listeners for tuning in. Again, my name is Kia Arian, reminding you once again that your skills and talents have been given to you for a reason. There are people who stand to benefit from what you offer, and there are others who you are not called to help. Focus on the former group. They're waiting for you.
If you enjoyed this broadcast, subscribe to the show, connect with Kia on LinkedIn, and let her know what inspired you. This broadcast was brought to you by Zyne, a marketing and brand development agency that helps attorneys, entrepreneurs, and professional service providers create raving clients who love them, stay with them, and tell others about them. Visit ZyneMarketing.com/newsletter to sign up and receive the Breathe Life newsletter, a print publication of Zyne.